Alright, welcome to our first video game. So now that you have an account and that you properly signed up, we are going to start making the first game. The first game is called Space Crash. So we talked about how space debris is beginning to be a problem for satellites. So the idea is to create a game where we are a satellite in the space orbit or in the Earth's orbit, and we have to move around and try to avoid space debris. So for that, I'm going to start a new game, and I'm going to call it Space Crash. The first thing that we need is, of course, our satellite. So I'm going to go here to Sprites, set my sprite. I'm going to rename it Robot Satellite. And then I'm going to draw something really quick. I know that for the means of this tutorial, I'm going to be very quick. But of course, the more effort you put in your designs, the better the game's going to feel. So take your time to create your satellite. Here I'm just doing something really quick. Here are the solar panels, okay? And then maybe a quick antenna. So this is going to be our satellite that is going to be orbiting the Earth, okay? And then we see that in the middle. Now, the second thing we need is a background. So I'm gonna go to Scene, and then Set Background Image to. So I'm going to draw. First, it's gonna be everything black, the space. Then I'm going to make, I'm going to draw the Earth. So it's going to be a big circle. You're going to see how I move that afterwards. So I'm going to be real quick. Here I'm going to outline the continents, of course. Mexico and the US, super big. Latin America right here. Some Europe, Africa. Remember, again, this is just real quick so we can move. Now, I want to have the satellite orbiting the Earth. So one thing I can do is to click on the marquee tool, grab my Earth, the glove here, boom, and I can just put it down here. So I can make it bigger. I can make it bigger like that and just put it here, right? So maybe like this, and then we go down. And then I'm just gonna take some black. I'm gonna add some stars. And basically that will be it. Okay, so I have my background. I can click done. So now I have my background and I have my satellite. So the first thing I want to do is to be able to move the satellite around. So for that, I'm gonna go move sprite. Of course, I want to move the satellite with buttons. So I'm moving my satellite with the buttons. And now when I start the game, as you can see on the simulator, I can move my satellite around. So that's good. In my game, I'm going to have space debris coming against me, and I will have to be moving left and right. Of course, up and down is fine, but the most important part is moving left and right. Now, for this project, I want you to familiarize with locations on the screen. So for that, I'm going to, I want that every time the game starts, the satellite starts on the lower area, on the lower part of our screen. So for that, I'm going to go to Sprites, and then set my sprite position to. So here, you're going to see basically our screen, what we see here. This upper left corner is the origin of a coordinate system. So basically it starts here. This is the x-axis, this is the y-axis, okay? So if I start here, this will be the coordinate 0, 0. If I go all along the x-axis has the highest value it can take on the screen is 160 on the x-axis, and on the y-axis the maximum value, which would be here, is 120. So if I click here, we get a guide. So as I was saying, 0, 0. Here I can move to the end, is 160. Here we can move to the end, and it's 190. Okay, but I want the satellite to appear in the lower area of the screen, maybe in the middle. So it's going to be 80, and maybe 100. So I'm going to leave it there. So now every time the game restarts, my satellite appears here. Okay? So far, so good. Now, let's start creating the space debris. So in this case, I don't want the space debris to appear on start. I want it to appear every 500 milliseconds. So I'm going to go to game, and then on game update every 500 milliseconds. So that means that every 500 milliseconds, a clone, so to say, of whatever space debris we draw is going to appear. So for that, I'm going to go to sprites, set my sprite to, and I'm going to call it space debris. That one, I'm just going to draw something really quick. It's going to be like something, I don't know, weird like that. So just something like this. I think that is enough. So that's my space debris. Maybe too colorful, but probably you can make it better. So that's my space debris. And now the space debris is going to be updated. So here we don't see it moving or anything, but we see that the space debris is in the middle. Okay, so we don't see it, we don't see the clones appearing, but they're actually creating every half a second, they're creating a new space debris. So what we can do here is we want the space debris first to appear on the higher part of our screen. How would you do that? Well, for that, we're going to go to set my sprite position to, and then we just set it up here. Okay, we set it up here. And now every time my space debris appears, it's going to appear here on top. All right. Now, we want the space debris to start going against our character, or our player. So basically what we need to add is we need to add movement to this space debris. For that, we have to use velocity. Now here, if you go to physics, set my sprite to velocity. When we talk about velocity, we talk about speed with direction. So the difference between speed and velocity is that when we talk about velocity, is a speed with a certain direction. In this case, you can see that we can have 50 pixels per second on the x-axis, and we also have 50 pixels per second on the y-axis. So this is actually going diagonally, all right? So we want the space debris to only come down. Now in this case, because we are making the space debris move, we already see the clones appearing, okay? Now we only want it to go down. So we only want it to go along the y-axis. So I'm gonna click and I'm gonna set the velocity along the x-axis to 0. And now you're gonna see it's going down, all right? See that? So far, so good. Now this game looks pretty boring. Why? Because I can just stay left or right and nothing will happen. In order to make this a little bit harder, we can add a mathematical function. For that, so what do we want to do? We want that every new clone of the space debris appears in a random spot along the x-axis. So for that, I'm going to go to math and I'm going to click on pick random. Okay, so I want to pick a random spot on the x-axis. So I want it to start, yes, in this left corner, but I want it to be able to also go to the right corner. So it's going to pick a random number between 0 and 160. And with that function, now we have a game where my space debris is appearing everywhere. So now this is getting a little bit more interesting. So far, so good. If we touch space debris, nothing is happening. So what should happen if I touch space debris? Well, I want the game to be over. For that, I'm going to go to game, and then I'm going to add the game over block. And I'm also going to go to sprites and then interactions. interactions or overlaps. So I'm gonna go here to sprites, overlaps, and I want to say if the player, oh, I did a big mistake. The space debris is not of kind player. The space debris is a projectile. So what we say is that on the sprite of kind player, when a player, like my satellite, touches or overlaps with another sprite of kind player, in this case of kind projectile, you lose the game. Okay? So we're gonna test that right now. Game over. If you want to play again, you have to click play. Okay, so now that's all for this game. One of the things you can do to go further is to think about how could you imagine you have not only space debris but also old satellites. So how could you add old satellites to appear and then add a function so the satellite can catch those old satellites, and I don't know, it can get points. We can look at that in the next video.